All right, guys, sorry for the mix-up with the last video. Hopefully this one has audio. On our tech page for today, to get charades, you're going to download this source file. When you click on this, you're going to get this big old box that pops up. You have to download here. And then on an iPad, you're going to have one more download button. So you'll click that. Then you're going to come up here and you're going to log into App Inventor. Go up to Projects and say Import Project AIA from my computer. Choose your file, and then on the iPad, choose File again. Mine shows up in my Downloads folder. That's where yours should be as well. Click on it and then say Open. I'm not going to do that because I already have the file here, but this is what it should look like when it loads. It already has most of your designer view done, and if we look in your code, it has a ton of code already created for you. So we're going to go through this, and I'm going to explain what you need to do for your app to make sure that it's complete. So in the designer view, the first thing that we're going to need to do is add a horizontal arrangement. So down in layout, I'm going to shut my user interface. I need to drag out a horizontal arrangement, and I'm going to put it above where it says number of correct guesses. I'm going to change my height to be 10%. I'm going to change my width to be 95%. There we go. The only thing that's going to go in this is one label. So I've got my label here, and this is actually going to be where my timer goes because we're going to run a timer on our game. So I changed it to timer here, and then I'm going to change the text here. We need two invisible components in this game. The first one is under sensors, and that's going to be an accelerometer. That's going to tell our iPad or our tablet that if we shake it, we want it to change the word that we're on and give us a point. The other one that we need is a clock because, as I said before, you're going to have a timer on this. So the three things I changed are horizontal arrangement with your timer, and then I changed the accelerometer and the clock. I added those to my designer view. Next thing we need to do is go to blocks. All the code that comes with it is set to make the game work, just not work great. So the first thing that's on here is a purple event handler, and we haven't used purple before, but this is called a procedure. A procedure works kind of like a broadcast in Scratch or like a recipe. So I can say make cookies once. It would have all my steps to making cookies here, but I would never have to write that again. I could just say make cookies from now on. This one happens to be pick next word. What pick next word procedure does is it takes that label, which is where our word is going to show up down here on our designer view, and it's going to pick an item from a list that's random and then get global word phrase list, which is our variable. That ties into this code right here. So the global word phrase list is here. The pick a random item from the list attaches to that variable. And then each of these is a different thing that could show up on the designer view of our app. You are going to have to change all 10 of these to be something else that has some kind of theme for your particular game. We also have an initial global score to 0. You guys all know what that is. You've used it before. So I'm going to shut my procedure because we've already talked about that one. I'm going to shut my score. We talked about that. I'm going to shut this word phrase list because we already talked about that one. Next thing up here is a skip button. So on our app, we can't really see it well. On the designer view, it's over here, but this is our skip button. And what it does is it sets our score to get a score -1, which means we lose a point anytime the skip button is clicked. It also takes that label where the word would show up, or where our score would show up, and it sets number of correct guesses to get the global score. So it subtracts a point, and then it calls our procedure to give us a new word. So if you hit the skip button, you're automatically going to lose a point. Then, if someone clicks the get word phrase button, it's going to give them a new word. I'm not going to shut this one yet because we're going to have to do some editing to it, but that's the general idea of what it does. The next thing we have is the reset game button. So if we hit the reset for the game, which you cannot see on our designer view right now, it's going to set the score to 0, internal. It's going to set the score label to 0, which is the external. And it's going to erase the word that we want people to guess, because on a reset game, you don't want a word to appear automatically. Then we have a correct button click. I don't like this button, but we're going to talk about it. So the correct button click would then set the score to get a score +1, which means whoever we're playing the game with guessed it right, they get a point. So that sets the internal score. This would then set the external score, and it gives a new word. That's all the code it comes with. What we want this game to do is have it so if we're holding the tablet up on our own head, like on our forehead, the pick next word would show the word that our partner is trying to get us to say. It's on our forehead, so we can't see it. They're trying to get us to say it. If I shake the tablet, I want it to give me a point, and I want it to change the word. Shaking the tablet has to be under the accelerometer sensor. So I'm going to grab when accelerometer shaking. And I'm going to tell it to give me a point, which I already know is in my correct button. And I want it to give me a word. I don't really want to have to click a button, because if I'm holding this thing on my head, either I have to try to jab the button myself without being able to see it, or my partner gets to poke me in the head, and I don't want that either. I'm going to take all the code out of the correct button click and move it into my accelerometer shake. I'm going to throw the correct code or correct button there, and I'm going to come back onto my designer view. I'm deleting that button. I don't want it. Okay with it deleting all the blocks in the block editor because I already moved them over to my accelerometer, and now I have it up here. The next thing I'm not entirely thrilled with is having to click this get word phrase button to pick the next word here. I understand that when you start the game, you have to have something, but we don't need to have a button just to get the next word. So I'm going to come over here to screen 1, and I'm going to say that when screen 1 initializes, I want it to pick my word. So as soon as screen 1 starts, I want it to pick my word. I also want it to create a timer that starts running. So I'm going to pause real quick. I'm going to build my timer code. You build your timer code, and then we'll be right back. All right, so I initialized my mobile timer to be 20 seconds. I built my clock 1 timer to get my time -1 second each time it goes. And if the timer gets to 0, I want the word phrase label to become game over. I'm not going to switch my screen or anything because it's not like a win or lose. It's just a, hey, time's up. Since I have screen 1 initialized picking my word, then I also want it to set my timer. So I'm going to say clock 1 timer. Timer enabled to. I'm going to put my logic block on there of true. And I need to tell it that if my clock equals 0, I want the timer to turn off. Otherwise, it's going to go negative. All right, so I'm going to test this on my tablet. I can't do that and show it to you on this, so you're just going to have to believe me that it's working. And then I want to look at the rubric. So I'm on Canvas. There's my rubric. It says that when the screen initializes, a word comes up and the timer starts. That is this code. As long as you have that, you get full points. The next one says when the word changes when the device is shaken. That's another 3 points. That's going to be my accelerometer, which for me is up here. Sorry. Okay, so we were talking about how when the device is shaken, we get a word change. So here's my accelerometer shakes. Not only do I get a word change, but I also get a point. Then the timer is set to something above 0, counts down, and doesn't go negative. I set my timer to 20. Here's my code that makes it count down. Here's my code that makes it not go negative, so I get those points. I have a reset button that will reset the score, the timer, and the word value. I don't think I have all that yet because on my reset button, that was built before I had a timer. So super easy to do. I'm going to duplicate this code, and I'm going to to set my global timer to 20. And then I'm going to set my score label, duplicate that, change it to my timer, change that to timer, and change that to timer. So I didn't have to write any code. I could just duplicate it all. So my reset button works. Then the list of words to choose from has been modified for your own words. That's where you come up to this global word phrase list. None of your words or phrases should be any of these. So make sure you get all 10 of those changed to yours to earn full points for this app.